South does an outstanding job covering recruiting for BOL. Hank, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, Travis. How are you?
I can't complain. You know, I'm older than Abbey Road, but age is just a number, as we all know.
Yeah.
So I kind of hang on that at this point in my life. But let's talk about some young people. All right, let's keep it more on the recruiting front, and what Alabama has going on, as we've talked about in recent weeks with this lineup of home games. You're seeing visitors to the Capstone. Bryce Young a couple of weeks ago definitely qualified as a primetime visitor. That culminated in a commitment, a flip for Bryce Young from USC to Alabama. What about Ole Miss weekend from a football perspective first, Hank, and what Alabama was able to maybe get done on the recruiting front?
Yeah, it was a good turnout for Alabama last Saturday versus Ole Miss. They had a trio of official visitors on campus. DeMoy Kennedy, Alabama's big-time linebacker commit from Theodore. He made his way up during his bye week for an official visit. McKinley Jackson, the four-star defensive tackle from Mississippi, who's the number one ranked prospect in the state of Mississippi in this class. He was on campus for an official visit. And Xavier Henderson, the top 100 receiver from South Florida, he made his way up as well. So three big names, three big targets, obviously with Kennedy already being committed. He's a pretty big priority target. But sounds like, all the visits went well. Never really heard of an official visit that's went poorly for anybody. And then, of course, with home games, they had a lot of the commits back on campus. There was a lot of bye weeks going around, not on just the high school level, but in college as well. Georgia was off, Tennessee was off, so a lot of those guys made their way down to Alabama to see the Ole Miss game. So overall, really good turnout. A lot of big-time underclassmen on campus. The official visitors, and of course, getting the commits back as much as you can is always important.
So let's talk about from a defensive tackle standpoint. Is Alabama going to be able to sort of pull off for a second year in a row the Magnolia State's top defensive line prospect in a recruiting class?
Right now it looks like it. In my opinion, I think Bama's obviously been recruiting McKinley Jackson really hard for a long time. At least 2 years they've been talking about him, I feel like. And I think it's really he's really built a strong relationship with them. And this was before the staff additions this past offseason. He was already close with the Alabama staff. He had visited several times prior to 2019. And then they bring in Sal Sinceri and Brian Baker, two coaches he was really close with at their previous stop. So those are two really big additions and two guys he's really close with. Obviously, Pete Golding is recruiting him with Southern Mississippi being his area. So he's got a lot of ties to the staff. He's really close with them. He really likes Nick Saban. He spent a lot of time with Raekwon Davis this weekend, obviously, a guy that can relate to him pretty good, being from Mississippi himself. And so I think right now, Bama, I think there's reasons to be optimistic for Bama's chances, but at the same time, you look at his recruitment, he's got 4 more official visits to take, all of which will come in December and then January into February. So there's a ways to go, but I think right now Bama's in a good spot personally.
Seems like this Alabama class for 2020 has more than a couple of fast risers or guys that seem to still be climbing or have the potential to climb in those 247 rankings. Hank, would DeMoy Kennedy qualify as one of those guys?
I think absolutely. And we've already actually 24/7 Sports has kind of been on the forefront of moving him up more in recent months. And I'm trying to pull up his stats real quick. If I can find him, I can't. But he's having a really strong start to his senior season. His junior tape's really impressive, and he's kind of just picked up right where he left off this year so far. I don't have the exact numbers, but a couple weeks ago he had a pick 6. He's all over the field making tackles for loss. And so, I think he's a guy that could certainly be in that 5-star discussion in the end. Right now, we have him as the number 40 player in the country, 24/7 Sports, that is. And so, at the end of the cycle, there's 32 5-stars. And so, he's already kind of on that cusp right there. And I think, if he keeps up this pace of play, he's going to be in the Under Armour All-American game. So he'll have a chance to kind of showcase his talent there as well in front of in front of all the rankings guys. So I think he's got a good chance, and he's certainly playing like it right now.
Yeah, he's a guy at the position that he's being recruited to play at Alabama. You almost wonder if he might not be helping Alabama right now if he was on campus at the linebacker position, because he is that sort of dynamic athlete. Again, there's a lot that goes into playing that position once you make that jump, and more of it probably has to do with between the ears as much as anything, but he is a fun guy to watch on the football field. Talking with Hank South, recruiting analyst for BamaOnline.com on a Tuesday edition of Southern Fried Sports presented by Peterbrook Chocolatier. So, Hank, I got to ask you, my favorite name already for the class of 2021, Kool-Aid McKinstry, a cornerback from Pinson Valley. I guess it's Quincy Kool-Aid McKinstry, a guy who projects as perhaps the number one overall prospect for the class of 2021. Sounds like he was on campus over the weekend. Is that correct?
That's right. And, I agree with you. That's got to be the best name and nickname of the 2021 class, if not, in all of the recruiting. But he was back on campus out of Pinson Valley High School. And he's been another guy we've been talking about for a while. He kind of got on the radar. I think it was the spring of 2018 when he really started blowing up. He got an Auburn offer, an Alabama offer, and he started, kind of hitting the recruiting scene. But this was his first trip back to Tuscaloosa. I want to say, in the last, I don't think he made it out this summer. He when I talked to him, he wasn't sure when the last time he was on campus was. So it's been a while. And if you've been following his recruitment, it's been a lot of, Clemson talk lately. He visited out to Clemson for their game with Texas A&M earlier or last month. They had offered him in the summer. I believe he has a basketball offer from Clemson as well, and so they've kind of been trending for him a little bit. So it was a good time to get him back on campus and kind of get him thinking about Alabama again. There's an interview up with him on BamaOnline.com right now, talking about kind of the factors going into his decision, and one of them is basketball. He's helped Pinson Valley to a basketball state championship as well as football in his time there. And he's starting to he's gotten a lot of D1 basketball offers, including, I believe, Auburn's offered him. I think he has a Kansas offer. So he's a really accomplished basketball player as well. And he told me that he's going to play both sports at the next level. And so that's kind of an interesting kind of little factor there to watch with him going forward. Who's it going to be that kind of offers him both sports and he sees the best path for himself. But, right now, like I said, I think Clemson is trending, but Alabama and Auburn are right there with them. And he's probably going to narrow his list down here pretty soon to, 5 or 10. And we'll see where he goes from there. But, big-time visit, getting the state's top prospect back on campus. And, of course, you want to keep your top prospects home.
Meant to ask you about this earlier because he was one of the three players on campus over the weekend. Xavier Henderson, younger brother of C.J. Henderson, the defensive back at the University of Florida. Has there been any feedback in the last day or so about how the trip went for the four-star wide receiver?
Yeah, he hasn't done an interview about the visit yet, but, obviously I've heard it's gone well, but, he just hasn't had a chance to talk about it or his coach or his dad or his parents. So we haven't really had too much feedback from him. But I know he did make it to campus. He did spend time with the coaching staff. Obviously, he's the first big-time receiver to visit after Bryce Young's commitment. So I'm sure that was brought up a time or two throughout the stay. But he's a guy that I was just talking about McKinstry trending to Clemson. That's kind of where a lot of people think Xavier Henderson is trending as well. But he's been taking his time with the process. He's taking all of his official visits. Alabama was his first one. Florida's in there as well, obviously, with his older brother there too. So long way to go there. But we're still working on getting feedback from him. But I will say, Xavier Henderson, he has a pretty long-standing relationship with Alabama, just because obviously Bama recruited his older brother as well. So he's already met Saban on their in-home visit. He's familiar with Alabama. So kind of has that pre-existing relationship with them, and we'll see if that kind of helps out in the end.
Maybe the most important visit officially from a prospective student athlete involved with Alabama athletics over the weekend, Maury Burnett, the combo guard out of Prolific Prep in Napa, California, 5-star, top 25, top 30, 40 type player nationally for the class of 2020. Nate Oates, Brian Hodgson, his staff, really getting after it on the recruiting trail. I think that both you and Evan Daniels, our national recruiting guy for basketball at 247sports.com, had an opportunity to catch up with Burnett. What did you get back from him in terms of how that trip went?
Yeah, I think Bama did hit a home run with him on this visit. Caught up with him on Sunday after he got done. He really likes Nate Oates. He really likes the Alabama staff and everything they're pitching to him. I talked to him kind of what's that message from Nate Oates. He said can come in right away and be a game changer for their program and help them win a national championship. So, and I thought it was also interesting. He said the best part of his visit was, we've heard Nick Saban always compare guys. He compares prospects to former guys he's coached and guys he kind of sees similar paths for. Nate Oates did an NBA comparison for Maury Burnett and compared him to Jamal Murray. And he liked that. He said he thinks he's a multidimensional player and someone who's underrated. And so I think Bama is trending for Maury Burnett right now. He has visits left to Oregon and Texas Tech next month, and he's not making a decision until December or January. But I think they left a really good impression with him or on him. And I think there's reasons to be optimistic if you're looking at Bama's chances right now.
Heck, Hank, let's just go ahead and assume Maury Burnett is going to land with Alabama in this 2020 class. What about Isaiah Jackson, the 5-star power forward out of Waterford, Michigan? Can we go ahead and just plan on both these guys being a part of Alabama basketball in 2020? We're getting excited here, Hank.
I know, right? Yeah, it's coming up. I think, the same thing with Isaiah. It's not exactly the same thing. He hasn't taken his official visit yet. He's coming later this month. But there's been some crystal ball picks trending in his favor to Alabama, or into Alabama's favor for Isaiah Jackson. And, another guy that they're certainly in the mix for. I think he narrowed his list down to 3, I want to say yesterday. And of course, Alabama's in it. So, they have a 33% chance to land him at least. So wow. I think, they're recruiting some elite guys and they're getting themselves in position for the elite guys. And that's kind of, it's pretty good for having not actually coached a basketball game yet at Alabama. So I think Bama's in good shape. And if they go out there and play well early on in the season, I think that just goes, that even helps their case even more.
There you go. Hank South, as always, doing a great job for us here on Southern Fried Sports. If you haven't already, you probably have, but give Hank a follow on Twitter at HankSouth247. And as always, check by the moment. You literally got to hit refresh because Hank is so prolific in his updates for us there at BamaOnline.com. You're going to want to do that at the website as well. Hey, Hank, can't thank you enough. Thanks a lot, my man. We'll talk soon.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Travis.